or we move the heavyweight division, take the title away from him.
Jon Jones called us last night and retired. Jon Jones is officially retired. Tom Aspinall is the heavyweight champion of the UFC.
I mean, I just feel like anybody would understand at this point. Like, you know, I'll retire the heavyweight belt if I have to. It's like, dude, give the guy what he wants at the end of the day, you know? And I'm not talking to Dana directly. I feel like I'm at a place now where, you know, like I want to take what I find to be super fights.
Right, everyone, the news has broken. I'm sure everybody's seen it. UFC undisputed heavyweight champion of the world. Moving forward, very, very important to me, just that I acknowledge everybody quickly who has supported me in this. I'm not going to say it was a tough time, but a bit of a challenging time over like the last kind of 10, 11 months that I have been inactive due to no fault of my own, but luckily.
Jon Jones has officially retired from the UFC, but don't be fooled. This wasn't some clean-cut farewell with a bow on top. It was chaos dressed in calm, a strategic move disguised as gratitude. Behind the flowery message and deep reflection talk, fans noticed something off. The timing was suspicious, the tone too polished, and the elephant in the room was massive: Tom Aspinall. While Jon talked legacy and moving on, Aspinall was right there, rising fast, hungry, and dangerous. And yet, Jon never said his name, never acknowledged the one fight that would have defined this new era. Instead, he bowed out. Smooth, respectful, but also unfinished. The UFC tried to sell it as graceful, but fans, they saw it differently. They saw a champion stepping away just as the real challenge arrived, and now the question hangs in the air like smoke in a locked room. Did Jon retire because his time was up, or because Tom Aspinall was next?
I'm the kind of guy who, if I do something, I want to be the best at it, just by nature. Like, by design, that is who I am. I'm very competitive, so obviously if I want to get involved with something, I want to be the best at it, and that essentially means being a champion. So I would say probably my first 6 months in MMA, I decided that's what I'm going to do.
Jon's official retirement statement read like a farewell speech from a legend who's seen it all. Gratitude, reflection, a nod to history. But if you looked past the poetic words, something didn't sit right. He talked about conquering, achieving, inspiring, but completely dodged the one topic that every fan was waiting for: the future of the belt. No mention of the division he just abandoned. No mention of the fighters now left in limbo. And certainly no mention of Tom Aspinall, the one man everyone wanted him to fight. Jon spoke like a man ready to move on, but the tone felt rehearsed, controlled, too safe. It didn't sound like a warrior leaving the battlefield. It sounded like a man slipping out the back door before someone kicked it down. And the more people listened, the more obvious it became. This wasn't just retirement. This was retreat. But Jon's polished message was only one side of the story, because behind the scenes, Dana White and the UFC were playing a very different game.
How do you intend to get one of these guys to actually fight you?
The heavyweight division is in probably the best spot it's been in for a while. Yeah, there's definitely a bit of a jam up at the top.
Yeah.
You know, it's stuck a little bit. As soon as Jon Jones decides what he's doing, like, is he even fighting Stipe at this point?
Well, I think they're going to fight in New York.
That's what they say, but I don't see any contracts being signed or anything announced, so we don't actually.
Behind the curtains, the UFC wasn't shocked, because they saw this coming months ago. Dana White might have played it off like the retirement was sudden, but in reality, whispers had been circulating for a while. Jon Jones had been stalling. First it was injury recovery, then it was radio silence, then it was vague statements about reflection. But what really exposed the truth was the UFC's hesitation. They gave Jon a 2-week ultimatum to decide what to do with the belt. Why? Because they already knew he wasn't planning to defend it. They just didn't want to admit it out loud. Jon had gone dark, and the UFC was stalling for time, stringing along fans, fighters, and media, hoping he'd come back, while knowing full well that he wouldn't. Meanwhile, Tom Aspinall sat in limbo, ready to go, ready to fight, while the UFC clung to a ghost champion who had mentally already left the game. The deeper you look, the more obvious it becomes. Jon's official retirement was just a formality. The real decision had already been made, and the UFC helped him save face. But while they were protecting Jon's image, they were also quietly protecting him from something else. because the name they didn't want to say too loud was Tom Aspinall.
Can you settle it once and all for fans? They want to know, are you retired or not?
We're not doing that.
Man.
We're not doing that right
Be
now.
sure to check out Dirty Boxing 2
Dirty Boxing.
tomorrow night.
Because I think you'll be back. What's the magic number to get you back?
If you come to Dirty Boxing, you'll find out.
You'll
tomorrow
find out.
night.
All right, cool.
Tom Aspinall wasn't just the next man in line. He was the reason Jon Jones quietly slipped out the back door. Jon didn't dance around it for long. He flat out said the fight didn't excite him. That one word lit a fire across the MMA world. Not excited about the most dangerous, explosive heavyweight on the planet right now? Fans weren't buying it, neither were fighters. DC went on record saying it plain. If Jon doesn't fight Tom, he quit. And quit is exactly what he did. This wasn't about legacy anymore. It was about risk management. Jon wasn't ducking everyone, just the one guy with the speed, power, and youth to shatter the aura. He had no problem talking super fights. He flirted with the idea of fighting Stipe, fantasized about Pereira, even entertained a Francis rematch. But Tom? Jon went radio silent, because Tom didn't fit the fairy tale exit. He wasn't a legend Jon could beat for a legacy boost. He was a rising nightmare with nothing to lose. And the second Jon realized this wasn't a story he could control, he folded the book and walked away. But what Tom did next turned this from quiet speculation into a loud, undeniable statement.
The interim heavyweight champion in the house with Asilia Taporia, and that man's looking for a fight.
While Jon faded into the shadows, Tom Aspinall did the exact opposite. He stepped up, called everyone out, and told the UFC he's ready for whoever, whenever. Volkov? Let's run it back. Cyril Gane in Paris? Let's go. Almeida? Throw him in. Tom wasn't just talking. He was begging for a fight while the UFC kept hitting pause, still hoping Jon might change his mind. But time kept ticking, and the division stayed frozen, all because the UFC refused to admit the truth. Their biggest star had already left the building. Fans were fed up, fighters were frustrated, and Tom was stuck holding an interim belt that meant nothing without a shot at the real one. The heavyweight division wasn't just stalled. It was being held hostage by a ghost champion who hadn't fought in over a year. And while Tom stayed in the gym, stayed active, stayed vocal, the UFC kept dancing around the obvious. They didn't need Jon to vacate. They needed to let go of the illusion that he ever planned to return. And when the moment finally came, when it was clear Jon wasn't coming back, it should have been Tom's coronation. But instead, it felt like an awkward handoff, one that reeked of delay, denial, and damage control.
Very true.
And finally, Jon Jones is scared to fight me.
True. We'll say true.
Jon Jones didn't just walk away from a fight, he walked away from his own legacy. Up until now, he was untouchable, the youngest champion in UFC history, the GOAT in the eyes of millions, a man who outclassed legends and outlasted rivals. But when it came time to defend his belt against a dangerous, unpredictable force like Tom Aspinall, Jon chose to disappear. And that's the moment his story cracked. Analysts didn't hold back. Bisping called it shameful. DC straight up said he quit. Because no matter how many records you break, fans remember how you finish. GSP walked away like a samurai, clean, decisive, after beating champions in 2 divisions and never holding up a division. Jon, on the other hand, fought for a vacant belt, stalled the heavyweight scene for a year, and bailed right when the toughest challenge showed up. That doesn't read like greatness. It reads like retreat. And even if Jon wasn't scared, the way he handled it opened the floodgates for fans to start asking the question he spent his entire career trying to avoid. Was Jon Jones ever really unbeatable? Or was he just really good at knowing when not to fight?
The finish. I was, like, they're saying they're going to drag me into deep water. I'm going to look in the camera and say, somebody drag me into deep water. I'm telling you, I want to feel what it's like. I want to see if I can swim or not. Jon Jones, if you can...
The fallout was instant. The MMA world didn't tiptoe around it. They erupted. Fighters, analysts, and fans weren't just speculating. They were calling it out directly. Daniel Cormier said it loud. If Jon didn't fight Tom, he quit. Ariel Helwani labeled the whole situation embarrassing. And then came the phrase that went viral. Tom Aspinall retired Jon Jones. 4 words that cut deeper than any punch. Even if it wasn't physically true, Perception became reality. The narrative stuck. Because when Jon had a chance to silence everyone by taking the fight, he vanished instead. It wasn't about age, injury, or legacy. It was about the one opponent who brought risk without reward. And that, more than anything, stained the myth. Fans weren't debating Jon's record anymore. They were debating his courage. The same Jon who once walked through killers like Rampage, DC, and Shogun was now being accused of ducking a man with no legend status, no legacy, just raw violence and momentum. And in MMA, that's worse than a loss. Because at least if you lose, you showed up. Jon didn't even do that, and it changed the way people look at him forever.
Is Jon Jones scared to fight you?
Yes. Jon is conning the public. The fact that he didn't want to fight Ngannou for 3 years, and now he's not wanting to fight me for over a year.
Is that fight fucking happening?
The UFC are saying that it's going to happen. I think it's down to him and Dana.
Dana loves Jon Jones.
He's trying to grease up his ego.
But while the MMA world kept debating Jon's exit, Tom Aspinall didn't waste a second looking back. He wasn't begging for recognition. He wasn't posting cryptic tweets. He was in the gym, focused on whoever stepped up next. Volkov? Let's run it back. Almeida? Let's test him. Cyril Gane in Paris? Let's make it violent. Tom didn't need Jon's blessing or the UFC's approval to claim the throne. He just needed a real fight. Because while everyone else was stuck wondering about what could have been, Tom was already building what comes next. He's not here for drama or legacy debates. He's here to dominate, and that's what makes this so different. Jon held the belt like it was his identity. Tom treats it like a tool, something you defend, use, and upgrade by fighting the best. No excuses, no delays, no politics. And the scariest part? He's just getting started. Every second Jon stalls, every headline about what if, only gives Tom more time to evolve into an even more dangerous problem. And at this point, it's not about chasing Jon. It's about proving he never needed him in the first place.
Now he's looking down at a young man, and it's like, he's not scared. Make no mistake about it. But I think it's enough to like question it. And you know what I think a big worry might be for him? Because with Aspinall, he could potentially get knocked out. Like legitimately knocked out and put on his back and out cold.
Jon Jones built a legacy few will ever touch. But the way it ended speaks louder than any title defense. He spent years shaping the image of a fearless champion, beating legends, silencing rivals, surviving scandals, but in the final chapter, ego got in the way. He wanted the fairy tale ending, the walk-off into greatness, but not if it meant risking it all against someone younger, faster, hungrier, and that's what Tom Aspinall represented. Not just a new contender, but a mirror reflecting everything Jon didn't want to face. The game was moving on with or without him, and rather than fight for his place in the new era, Jon opted out. That one move turned a celebrated exit into a legacy-sized question mark. Because real fighters don't retreat from pressure, they rise to it. Tom is doing exactly that. He's not here for fame or nostalgia. He's here to beat whoever stands in front of him, no matter how dangerous. And as he keeps stacking wins, Jon's absence becomes more than just a retirement. It becomes a reminder of the fight that never happened, and the one that will haunt this division's history forever. Jon Jones may be gone from the octagon, but the way he left will never be forgotten. He didn't exit in a blaze of glory. He slipped away while the most dangerous threat of his career stood waiting in silence. And now, every time Tom Aspinall steps into the cage, he's not just defending a belt, he's defending the heavyweight division from being defined by what Jon refused to do. This isn't just the end of an era, it's the beginning of accountability. Fighters aren't judged only by their wins anymore, but by the wars they choose not to fight. And as Tom continues carving a path through the division, Jon's silence becomes louder than any walkout music ever could be. So here we are. One dynasty done, another one rising. If you believe Jon Jones should have answered the call before walking away, drop your thoughts in the comments and let us know where you stand. And if you're ready to watch Tom Aspinall build a legacy the hard way, one violent finish at a time, hit that subscribe button, because this new chapter, it's already looking more real than the last one ever did.